Good morning, guys. Good morning. Happy Monday. Hopefully, you guys are doing well. Hopefully, you guys are washing your hands. I know today is a special day for some of you. Just stay safe, make good decisions, please. I just want to go over some things about this week in general. So, I think we're going to move towards like a weekly assignment kind of model. So instead of what I've been doing, so Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, I give you guys a new assignment for those 3 days, and then kind of a riddle Thursday, and then Friday was kind of a catch-up day for you guys. I think this week what we're gonna try is I'm gonna give you guys a kind of a bigger assignment on Monday, and then that'll be your only kind of assignment for this week. And then I'll give you a riddle on Thursday, but this whole week will be your time to finish this one assignment, right? So if you're unable to finish it in one sitting, that's totally fine. Um, from what I believe, you can always come back to it later on, edit your answers, and then resubmit it. So I'll only be checking it after Friday. So you should be good there. But other than that, just remember Thursdays 10 to 1, the free meals. If you guys are in need of, basic amenities, I believe they will have those for you guys as well. If you guys have problems with your laptops, email me, contact me on Remind, talk to me on Google Classroom, and I will send you the procedure on how to do that. But usually they'll have that ready for you guys on Thursday as well. But other than that, just remember turn in your roll calls. That's how I know you guys are alive and that you guys are, here. So, and yeah, that's pretty much it. All right, so let's go into factoring. We're factoring quadratics. Now, I know we did this a while ago, and I know that some of you guys are so used to doing things like menu 331 and stuff like that. Well, problem is we don't have those TI inspires, right? So we can't do menu 331. Instead, we have to do this the old-fashioned way. So those of you who have been doing this by hand, you guys are going to have an easier time with this one. All right, so this one, I know a lot of people like to use this one, that X method, right? You can definitely use X method. I know some classes, they prefer to use the asterisk method, okay? They are both the same method. I want to teach it using only asterisk method because it makes it easier for some of the other problems later on, right? This will be, it might seem a little more confusing, but trust me, it will help you out later on, okay? So we're going to do the asterisk method. And here we go. We've got this. Remember, do you see how I kind of drew this right underneath my problem? If you see right in the middle, this 15, it falls right down into this top portion here. So 15 goes there. You don't need the x, but you need the sign, so it's plus 15, which is good. And then what we got down here, that's where we have 8 times c, right? 8 times c, this one's b. 8 times c means the first number, well, there is no number, but it's invisible, right? If it's invisible, it's a 1. So a is 1 times c. C is the last number, so that 54, but don't forget that negative. Don't forget the negative. So negative 54. So 1 times negative 54. And then I just have to multiply those two on the bottom. So 1 times anything is just anything, so it's negative 54. And that's my number on the bottom, which is good. Okay? Now, what do I do next? All I have to do, these are both A. They're both A. And that's it. There's nothing else to change about that one. Right? So I'm just looking for the first number, which is that invisible one. So they're both 1. Both of them are 1. So remember, middle, first and last, and then this is where you play your game. That's where you play your game. All right, so let's play it. I am looking for, I'm looking for two numbers that multiply to be negative 54. They have to multiply, but they add to be 15, right? That number in the middle. Multiply to be this one, but add to be this one. So let's just, I don't even want to worry about this one yet. So I'm just looking at the negative 54, or really just 54. I don't even have to worry about the negative right now, right? Let's just not worry about that, and let's talk about 54. Well, 9 times 6 equals 54. That's true. Now, if I did 9 plus 6, that would be 15. Well, let's take out my hand. It is 15. Okay. But this is where I need to remember that negative, right? So 9 times 6 isn't negative 54, so one of them has to be negative. This is where things get a little funky, okay? So 9 times 6, not negative 54. So let's make the first one negative. Negative 9 times 6. Well, that's negative 54. That's good. But remember, it still has to add. It still has to add. So you have to double check these every time you change something. So negative 9 plus 6. They're different signs. This is a negative, this is a positive. If they're different signs, you have to essentially subtract. What I mean by that, it's negative 9 plus 6. That actually becomes, not this one, but it becomes negative 3. So since that isn't 15, we can't have negative 9, right? So maybe it's negative 6. Well, that means 9 plus a negative 6. 9 plus a negative 6. That becomes not 15, but it becomes just 3. Since it's not 15, again, that can't be our answer too. Well, in that case, maybe it's not 9 and 6. It can't be 9 and 6 then. So we gotta find my marker. But we also gotta find two other numbers, right? Instead of 9 and 6, I gotta find two other numbers. Well, let's see. We've got 18, right? 18 and 3. 18 times 3 would be 54, and I'll make the 3 negative. So 18 plus and minus 3, which is the same as 18 minus 3, that's 15. That works out. Now, how did I find 18 and 3? I know what multiplies to be 54, right? And I'm going to check through all of those pairings. So we knew about 9 times 6, right? But I also know about 18 times 3, right? And if you don't know what multiplies to be that number, test some numbers out. Just test the number, right? So if I didn't know it was 18 and 3, I can do, I don't know, 12 times, and then just throw out a number. 12 times 5. Just throw it out there, right? Test it. See what 12 times 5 actually is. Turns out to be 60. Okay, so I went too far ahead. Let's make one of these numbers smaller. 11 times 5. I made one of the numbers smaller, so maybe that'll get me closer. 11 times 5 turns out to be 55. So it turns out I'm getting really close, right? So you have to change your numbers and see what multiplies to be 54. That turns out to be 18 and 3. All right, so I've got my two numbers, right? I've got 18 and -3. Now that I have them, I can finally fill in these blank spots over here. So I've got 18 on one side, -3 on the other. Remember, don't forget the negative, please. Don't forget that one. Okay? So, we've got all that going. We finally filled out our asterisk. Now we have to circle the sides. Remember to circle these sides. So I went ahead, I circled them out, and those are what you need for your binomials. So this is, let me color code this one, was red and green. So this is 1, and then I'm going to put an x in front of these, right? 1x plus 18. So 1x plus 18, that's where we're getting all those numbers from. That's my first parentheses. And then right here, 1x minus 3, since it's a -3. So 1x minus 3. Those are my two parentheses, this one and this one. So I'm going to go ahead, pull those over. I'm going to draw arrows. So I've got 1x plus 18. Whoops. Then I've got 1x minus 3. And those are my two factors. Those are my two factors. That's pretty much it. Whenever it asks you to factor something completely, this is something they're looking for. Okay? So, let's see, what do we want to do? Let's do something where there's a number in front of x squared. Okay? So I'm going to erase this one, but I'll give you guys a second to look at this one. All right. So let's take another one from the homework, just to give you guys a easier time. Yeah, let's do this one. So I'm not going to go over all of the topics on that homework today. I'll be going over the rest of the topics on Tuesday and Wednesday. But just by doing that problem and this next one, you should be able to do a majority of them, actually. So it's going to ask you something like, which expression is equivalent to, and what's the function? 24x squared minus 22x plus 5. So it's going to ask you this. Now the answer choices are in parentheses, they're in factors, right? So the real question is, can you factor this? Can you factor this? So that's what we'll do. We'll do the same thing. I've got I'm going to put it over here so I have plenty of space to do it. There we go. So I've got my asterisk just as normal. Now this one's going to be B up here. This is A times C. This is A. This is A. And those are the question marks. Those are the ones we're trying to find. All right, so I'm going to start off with the top one because that's the easiest one, right? So B, that's the number in the middle. Don't write the X, you just want the numbers. So negative 22, that's what we're looking for, negative 22. Don't forget that negative. Do not forget that negative. All right, so next easy one. Well, you could say the A's are the easiest ones. Last problem, it was just 1 because it was invisible. This time there actually is a number in front, right? So I'm looking at 24. Don't look at this x squared, right? You're not looking at the squared part. You're looking at the coefficient, the kind of the big numbers in front. So I've got 24 for A. 24 and 24. There we go. And then A times C. That one would also be an easy one. So I've got A, which is 24, just like before, times C, which happens to be 5 here, the last number. So 24 times 5. I'll give you guys a second to figure that one out. 24 times 5. And yes, it should be 120. 120. So let's figure out these two. We got to play our game, right? So we're looking for two numbers that multiply to be 120, but add to be negative 22. They have to add to be negative 22. So right away, I know that at least one number has to be negative here. At least one of our numbers has to be negative. But since this is positive up here, right? I need to have two negatives. Because two negatives multiplied become a positive, right? So, let's take a look. Let's just throw some numbers out here. Well, I see that this ends in a 0. So the easiest one that I like to do all the time is 10 times something. No, actually, I'll write it up there. 10 times something. Okay, well, 10 times 10 is 100. 10 times 11 is 110. 10 times 12 is going to be our number. 10 times 12. All right, so now let's change some signs. Let's change some signs. Negative 10. Well, negative 10 times 12, that's a negative 120. I don't want a negative, so maybe I have to make this one negative 2. So negative 10 and plus a negative 12. Well, negative 10 times negative 12, that's 120. Negative 10 plus a negative 12 turns out to be negative 22. So those are our the numbers that we want. Negative 10 and negative 12. That's. I'm going to circle those just like we did last time. But wait, before you write your parentheses, before you write them out, you need to check if this fraction is irreducible. What do I mean by that? Well, if you see here, I have the 24 over negative 10, right? Because if you see this line, it's actually kind of like a fraction bar, right? So I'm looking at 24 divided by negative 10. Well, that actually can be reduced, right? I can reduce this one. By reducing, I mean, can I divide both the top and the bottom by the same number? So I can divide this by 2, but I can also divide the bottom by 2. Since I can do that, that's what I got to do. So 24 divided by 2 that's 12. Negative 10 divided by 2, that's going to be negative 5. Now I can't divide both of these numbers by something. So since I can't reduce that anymore, this is actually my true fraction, my true factor. All right? So I got to take a look at the right side now. I got to take a look at this right side. I'm going to erase this one. And let's take a look. I've got 24 over negative 12. Remember, this is a fraction bar, right? So 24 over negative 12. That's all I did, just rewriting it. Then I gotta reduce it. Well, I can divide this one by 2 and this one by 2. So that's what I'll do. That's what I'll do. Divide by 2, divide by 2. So if I do 24 divided by 2, that should be 12. Get the fraction bar in there. Then I do negative, oh, wow. I didn't even realize I wrote it like that. Whoops. So negative 12 divided by 2. Well, that should be negative 6. Okay, not bad. Now I gotta check again. Check again, right? Can I reduce the new one? Can I reduce this? And it turns out I can. I can still divide it by 2. Why do I keep doing this? Divide by 2. There we go. So I got 12 divided by 2 on top, right? So that's going to be 6. And then negative 6 divided by 2, that's going to be negative 3. Now you're going to hate me, but you can actually reduce this again. But you can either do it this way, right? Of course, you can't divide by 2, but you can divide by 3. You can divide both the top and bottom by 3, right? So that's what I could do. I also know that 6 divided by 3 is just 2. So I have 2 over negative 1. 2 over negative 1. And that is my fraction right there. Now that I have my fractions, I have this one and I have this one after quite a bit of work, now you can write them out. So I've got this 12 on top, so I'm going to write an x next to it. And so I've got 12x, now don't forget that sign, minus 5. 12x minus 5. Then over here, I've got the 2 on top, so the x goes on top, and I've got 2x minus 1. And those are your two factors. So what would my final answer look like? Well, I'm going to drag these, I guess I'll put them in the middle. That's supposed to be an arrow. So my answer will look something like this. 12x minus 5 parentheses. Then I've got 2x minus 1. That's my final answer. That's what I should be looking for if I'm factoring. And that's it for factoring quadratic equations or quadratic functions with 1 in the front and then with, in this case, a different number in the front. So we had 24 in the front, right? So there are some other things, some other topics that I'm going to go over in the coming few days, so Tuesday and Wednesday. Things like x minus 3 squared equals 16, right? I'll be covering something like that. And there are some other ones as well, like 4x squared minus or plus 8x, right? So I'll be covering those two in tomorrow and Wednesday. All right, but you should be able to get through a majority of the problems on this assignment for this week. But that being said, I'm going to include a Khan Academy video on some more examples of this type of question. And if you guys have questions, you can always ask me on Google Classroom, always ask me on Remind or on the YouTube comments. So whichever way you want to contact me, that's fine. Just let me know and I will try my best to help you out. All right, but other than that, make good choices today. Don't set off the fire alarm. Don't do none of that. Just be safe and be smart. All right, I'll see you guys soon. And you guys have an awesome Monday.